Rohit, thank you so much for joining me. Really, really excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me. I'm excited equally.
My pleasure. So we've got a lot to cover. And if you've listened to the podcast before, you'll know we start right at the back at the very beginning and explore how you've ended up in this position. So what was it that first attracted you to working with computers, and what did you first do when you started working?
When I was a kid, I always had a plan of starting up an organization, and I did some sort of research around what is that I can do and where can I have a maximum impact. And at the same time, I had some sort of a background on computers, during my higher education. And for the fact that I loved logics, reasoning, I planned to pursue computers because I thought at that point in time that maybe it's a place where I can contribute, being all alone as well, contribute more from a product and another perspective. And I loved solving problem. And to me, computers, it's a way using which you can impact a business by solving problems in a digital way.
So were you interested in being a programmer? Was that what first attracted you, being able to write a piece of code and seeing an output from the system? Or was it just computers in general?
No, it was always programming. I started the journey with basic programming, and I was somewhere around in very, very, very small, probably studying in 7th or 8th standard at that point in time. What I loved the most was problem solving. I remember we used to use basic programming to, primarily write codes for prime number, even number, Fibonacci series back in school, right? But then we started using that to see how do I build small games, in teams. So I enjoyed what it had to offer, more than I knew at that point in time. I was quite fascinated with my teachers, who used to say that this is being used for billing, and then receipts, and a lot more at that point in time. And that's what always fascinated me around how good it is to solve or automate different problems in hand.
Yeah, nice. So when you first entered the workforce, what were you doing? I'm guessing a programmer, but what were your first couple of roles?
So see, the first, I would say, achievement I had was there was this is when you had Orkut, very popular. So I designed a social networking site for universities at that point in time. That was again a contest by Microsoft. And then I was among top 10 winner in India at that point in time. Then
Facebook.
No. I mean, I was not there on Facebook at that, at that point in time when I did that. But I was a very strong user of Orkut. This is somewhere around 2006-7, I would say, or around 2006, I would say.
Sure.
What the first biggest thing I did, apart from this, was I worked with Indian Space Research Organization to design the first nanosatellite, where I was primarily responsible for writing the RTOS, which is real-time operating system for onboard computers. That's the heart of any satellite. And that was the first nanosatellite for India, within 10 kg of weight. That was my first exposure as well to programming on, microcontrollers and mix of electronics and programming. Was there for a couple of years, designed the satellite. Then I, wanted to move on and do something more onto web and, come out of system-based programming. That's where I joined an organization in India. And then they introduced me to Salesforce. My initial thought was that this is a very basic tool. The first 3 days or 4 days of training, when you go through the training guide, I was always thinking that why am I even going through this training? This is just all about drag and drop, and this is like data input, data output. But eventually that perception, I realized that I was wrong in that. but a lot of my exposure and I would say learning came in the first 4 years of my engagement with that organization, where I was very much into Salesforce and transformation for a lot of large customers globally.
You started off your career in Salesforce as a programmer again, and then progressed into architecture?
No, I started my career with Wipro in Salesforce from a domain and a tech perspective. And I started as a programmer, grew as a consultant, worked in Europe for a couple of years, on behalf of them for a few large pharmaceutical customers, helped them in a global rollout and transformation. That's where my learning and exposure beyond Salesforce and around Salesforce came in, and that's where the exposure of entire digital transformation came in, because there are a lot of marketing solutions, etc. From third Oracle and other organizations that we collated together to bring in an element of transformation for them. But then I moved out from that organization, once I was a consultant, and I joined Salesforce. Yeah, and then there I grew as an architect and a CTA, and I came out to start my entrepreneurship journey.
So you mentioned you went to Europe for a while. You went for a few years, I think. Did you benefit? Did your career benefit from going to Europe and experiencing that kind of onshore?
Oh, yes, definitely. I've worked in numerous countries in Europe for a good amount of time, and what I've realized is when you meet the actual end users and business, right? You understand the impact that you are creating, and the impact on positive and the negative side as well. The impact that you've created by delivering the right solution, at the same time, the impact that business will have if you don't deliver it in the right way, or if it goes faulty post go live. What's the dollar value loss? And when you meet them, when you translate the needs, technical requirements and look at it from a business lens, the thought process would change, because then you would think about how do you add values in a way where you can deliver something right. And you'll also start thinking around, to make business sustain, what is that I can deliver? Okay, I can't do everything, but can I do an MVP for them? What is the optimized way of delivering a solution to them? So it definitely benefited. And I think having a business exposure early in your career will always help, right? It doesn't matter what hat you're playing, even if you're technical, but being exposed to business and understanding how and the details around it would always help.
Definitely. So you then returned to India and you joined Salesforce. What was the ecosystem like in India at that point, and how have you seen it evolve over the years?
Frankly, the ecosystem was at that point in time was not at all around what we have today. When I started my career, having one or two cert was a big deal at that point in time. The number of people in the ecosystem was not much, but you had, and the demand was there, but even Salesforce was not very well known at that point in time among the ecosystem. Today, the way I see is, the technology itself is no more a CRM it's no more just a CRM product. It's transformed into big platform, right, for sales, service, marketing, and any apps automations, right? And it has enriched itself with a lot of AI capabilities, industry solutions, analytics, and RPA, etc. So the ecosystem from a tech offering perspective have changed, which also means that the impact that now people can have on the society is huge. You no longer have to introduce what Salesforce is. When I was starting my career, if you say I work on Salesforce, the thought process everyone had was, okay, some sort of a tool for sales automation. No one could relate it to what exactly the product is about. It's a US headquartered company, the reach of the product and the flavor that you have. In fact, the term itself was not very popular. That's no more the case. It's very popular. There are graduates, undergraduate students now who wants to learn and who wants to build a career in this tech. So that has grown exponentially, I would say, in last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you remember when that changed? Because from the outside looking into the Indian ecosystem, I know it's really passionate about Salesforce and like the previous dreaming events that have run there. Like, the turnout and the fanfare there is incredible. But can you remember when it became the platform that people wanted to work on compared to a platform people didn't really know what it was?
I feel the change was gradual. There's been a good amount of investment that the company has done in the dev ecosystem for that. I remember somewhere around 2012, we had arranged for a hackathon, where we invited a lot of people in Bangalore to come down for it. That's where I could feel the change happening in the market, where MVP started coming up, right, and they started writing about the product. I would say somewhere from 2013 to 15, the ecosystem and the demand and know-how of the product changed, and that's where from lack of interest or from being uninterested to being very much interested, to build your career on Salesforce, the transformation of change had happened. 2015 onwards, in fact, the way the branding of the product was done, it's changed. So somewhere around that time period, I would say that change has happened.
And are you seeing now many customers in India using Salesforce as opposed to people working on overseas products or projects? But are you seeing a big uptake in people buying licenses for businesses in India?
Yes. So that was something that we did a lot last 10 years. Today, if I see most of emerging companies or tech-based startups have Salesforce presence, but you name the organization, enterprise, in the enterprise space, mid-market space, etc. There is Salesforce being used in big or small way. But the big thing I've seen Salesforce being used as a platform that is directly impacting the business, right? We've got lending companies where the entire lending solution is built on top of Salesforce. We have banks or NBFCs running the entire platform, the core business on Salesforce. We have got edtech companies who's running their entire core part of their tutoring, mentoring business on Salesforce. We've got e-com app companies doing the same. And now we've got, I would say, manufacturing companies running their distributor and dealer management, DMS apps and solutions on Salesforce. So the change has happened. Everyone seen the impact, and we've recently got. It's been a while now, but the data center has come down to India as well, which means that while the enterprise and private sector market, the penetration has been great, now we can see the same change in the public sector as well. As a partner engaged in this market more around transformation and implementation, I see surge in demand. I see exponential surge in demand, for implementations and for products, something that can help them transform their business. Primarily after COVID, or first year of COVID. So from somewhere, I would say mid of 2020 to now, there's been the number of demands and the requests that we get per week has just got doubled from customers, where everyone wants to get onto that digital transformation journey because they've understood the importance of decentralizing themselves, decentralizing themselves and controlling business in a way that is less dependent on your activities on field, etc. So the demand has increased, which also means that the adoption of the platform and the popularity and the comfort and the confidence of the platform has also increased.
And this is you're saying also in India for businesses
I'm
using
from India perspective,
because you're also seeing that globally, right? In terms of all of the industries you've mentioned, but it's great to see. And I know that Salesforce have projected the growth in India to be so much greater than other regions. So it's really exciting for someone that's on the ground there to be talking about the change that you're seeing, because it's great to see that that's actually unfolding.
So I'll tell you, the good thing is, if you want to build your expertise in B2B market, global market is could be a right destination for you. For B2B, global market could be a good destination, when you when it comes to implementation. We'll talk about cross-cloud and multi-cloud implementation, right? But when you look at India, it's all about cross-cloud or maybe single cloud implementation, but it's about scale. How do you deliver a solution, that can scale primarily in a B2C space, right? That can scale exponentially. If you look at India as a market, right, it's a consumer market, and we are one of the second most populated country, right? The number of consumers is very high. So it's about if there's a B2C solution, you will always look at solution that can have a hit of around 10 million API per day. You'll talk about a solution where you could have terabytes of data, and there are customers who has it, right? Now, how do you build a solution, right, with the right archival strategy, with the right choice of platform, that will allow you to scale to millions and millions of records in one single objects. At the same time, connect with your archival or any other system to kind of read the data, which is in terabytes. How do you do it in a way that so that the turnaround time is very minimal? So we've had customers where we've tested platform capability to the core, right? We've looked at how we think around, we thought around how do I reduce the load time of pages, on mobile app? How do I improve the efficiency, because the bandwidth, you may not always be on a LTE mode. You may be in a low network zone, right? How to improve the performance, and then how do you generate analytics and a lot of stuff out of it. So it's a complex market when you talk about scale, just because of this is a consumer driven market, but that's where you're fun. You can solve problems, you can do a lot of innovative stuff on top of a platform along with the ISV support we have, right? And define something which is unique.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've not thought of it like that. Like, you're facing challenges on Salesforce that not really anyone else globally are facing. Like you said, the second biggest population. So it's interesting to think about the concept of as Salesforce grows and grows in the region, the different challenges that you'll be facing that other people just won't know about or won't have experienced. So you are a CTA, and I'm interested to hear how that journey panned out. So how did that become a goal? I guess while you were at Salesforce, and that was something that you I guess identified. But how did that journey play out for you?
So if you look at CTA pattern, right, you have to appear for a MCQ exam, and followed by, that's what was earlier. And that was followed by, you have to then go and appear in front of a board where you get a scenario, right, present, and then they rate you. So somewhere around 2016 is when I decided to pursue the CTA track, wrote the MCQ exam, and then I was eligible for that the next round. But then it took me almost 2 to 3 years to prep. First year was completely gone because I was quite occupied with some very complex engagement with your customers. I had and then 2017 mid is when I picked up on the journey again with a couple of my colleagues and a mentor, a few colleagues who wanted to also pursue this journey, and then a mentor who was already a CTA. It was good 1.5 years of time that we spent primarily, where the point we all had was, one, let's not just do read or practice for this exam, like you just have to pass and come out, but let's do it in a way that once I'm done with the whole preparation, I should be empowered to behave like an enterprise architect, and I should be in a position to talk to any CXO, right, and help them understand their digital transformation journey using what we have from the platform and outside the platform, right? So our goal was that, and with keeping that goal in mind, structured the whole preparation into certain domains. That's also evident from different exams that Salesforce has now. So we structured the whole preparation into 9 domains. I spent 2 weeks or 3 weeks each domain. We went into depth. We had a lot of sessions around Q&A, prepared different scenarios, tried to solve those scenarios, present to each our colleagues and peers, get their feedback. So almost, if I take 9 certs, right? And 3 weeks each. I'm talking about 20 to 25 to 27 weeks is what we spent just preparing ourselves on domains, where we strengthened ourselves on different clouds. We strengthened ourselves. I mean, I personally strengthened myself on the capability from an integration perspective, identity and access management, large data volume, licenses, application design, data model strategy, data migration strategy, and a lot more, right? Once that was done, then I probably would have spent 3 more months, on trying to solve scenarios which is combined with all these domains that I'm looking at, right? So it was like, going back to your university days, when you slog, work, read, right? So did that, time I was taking and to solve those papers. At my time, I believe we were given 2 hours to solve a scenario. Now I believe it's 3 hours. But when I went, it was 2 hours to solve. It was the time that was given idly to solve the paper. So timed the whole preparation in a way that I could do it in the right way. Had to make a lot of choices and decisions around what would I use to solve those papers, the scenario, right? You get an options of either using your computer, where you can build a solution and presentation on PowerPoint, or you can do flip charts.
Yeah.
I was more comfortable doing it on flip chart. And the only challenge I had was my handwriting. So I had to just make sure that it's written in a way that everyone can read. But I opted for that. So again, prepared, keeping that in mind. The next step, which is more critical, is there's no right and wrong. I mean, when you look at scenarios, right, you would have solved it in a certain way, which as a judge I would not think about, right? I may want you to use, let's say, a specific type of relationship, right? But I may have different perspective to it. So what's really important is, how do you articulate around what were the choices you made, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the key decision factor for you to go ahead with a specific kind of a solution, right? And it's also important for you to reflect on, have you thought around the long-term vision, right? What happens tomorrow if I want to scale with a solution that I'm proposing, right? So 45 minutes is what typically you get to present that to board of judges, right? And you need to make sure that your presentation is very much articulative. It's in the pace is in a way that everyone can understand what you're trying to say. And you are also giving yourself enough of time to explain that, right? And then, so my challenge was on more than solving a problem, because I've been into this ecosystem for long. It was more around articulating it in a way that it's well understood by the team, right? So I had to spend 3 months, not just solving the papers, but play it, repeat it, and present it again and again to see how good I'm able to, and how good I'm from a timing perspective. And if the choice of words that I have is, and the lingo that I'm using is right. And that's again something I would say to everyone, right? Use the right lingo, use the right words when you articulate the solution, right? And obviously then you've got a Q&A, which if you're technically good, you know what you have done, you would be able to do well. But again, when I appeared for the exam, I'd gone with an open mind that in case if I get a feedback, I would consider the feedback, think quickly about it. And if I feel the feedback is right, I'll see how does it impact my solution and go back. Otherwise, I'll justify and defend my solution, saying why I've gone ahead with a specific approach. So one challenge I had during the preparation was time, because you don't sit idle when you have to prepare. I was on an active project and was working actively, and I had got recently married at that point in time. So I had to make sure that I'm able to spend ample amount of time with my family as well. So I did struggle, and that's why if you see 2016, I took 3 years to go and write the exam. But the point was that even for those 3 years, for the last 2 years, one thing I had to very religiously do was put some sort of a discipline on my daily routine, right, and follow it. So I had to time every stuff I did in those 2 years was timed in a way that if I have to wake up at a specific time, and I have to wake up 2 hours of study, 1 hour of preparation, then office, then travel, then again. So the timing is very important. And that's another learning that you get out of the whole preparation, right? It's not about you qualifying for it. It's about you being transformed in the whole journey of 2, 3, or 1 year, right? More time you take, more good it is for you, because the transformation will help you in future. It's not just a certificate that will help you. So those transformation of being punctual, committing yourself to certain rules and process that you want to adhere to, and ensuring you are doing it, is very important. So yeah, I had to follow a very strict routine for 2 years, where I had little time for my family. Weekends were gone in preparation, and studying it in the right way, and that is what helped me.
And I love that concept of your goal was to become a CTA, but the overall picture was to be able to have a architectural discussion at the CXO level. And I think a lot of people kind of forget that ultimately the CTA is an enabler of that. Like, it's not, the CTA is a goal, but it's about being the best architect you can be, right? And broadening your skill set. And that's, I guess, sometimes as important as passing is the journey that you go on to become the best architect that you can be.
Yeah. So also a point is technology is not going to be constant. Anything you learn is already outdated. That's a fact, right? And the problems are not going to be the same every time you meet a customer. Every customer is unique, and they have their unique problem, and they don't really care if you're a CTA or if you're a developer. What they really care is, can you solve the problem, and can you give me the right advice and solution, right? So it's very important that you are a CTA or you're not a CTA, doesn't matter. Are you able to react to the customer challenge and solve it in a way that it's a win-win situation, is what's really important, right? CTA, if you is something, as I said, right, if you do it in the right way, the time that you invest in preparation is actually a enabler for you. So it's like you are practicing to go for a war, right? So you need to practice really well so that you can do well. And every day is a war. Every day when you meet a customer, it's a different sort of a challenge, and every day you have to prove yourself that why you are worthy of it. Otherwise, you'll be out the next day.
Sure. So since then, and kind of more recently, you've formed your own business. What was it that attracted you to doing that? And that must have been a big decision, leaving Salesforce, being a Salesforce technical architect, and how did that journey and the plans come together?
So that was always the plan. As I said right before, when I moved into my graduation days, or when I was a kid, that was always a plan to kind of start something. But the idea was to do it in a constructive and a structured way, right? Where I can de-risk a lot of components. CTA was one of the enabler that helped me de-risk and kind of ensure that no matter what happens, I have stability in my career. I may have stability, from my career perspective. Now, why did I leave, and why did I wanted to do this? The simple objective was impact, right? My simple motto was one is to create an impact in the ecosystem where, the ROI from the product is higher. Second, really help large and small organizations in their transformation journey, and more onto consulting by providing the right amount of consulting that I can. Third, I would say, was also around how do I enable more people, right, into this ecosystem, and how do I help them grow and shape their career, right? How do I guide, mentor, coach them in the right way? And obviously contribute more from an innovation perspective. Think beyond Salesforce, using Salesforce. That's an important point. When I say beyond Salesforce, tech is not going to be the same tomorrow, right? How do you use things and innovation that is there from small, large, medium organizations? Use that along with Salesforce to bring in an element of change and solve problems that has not been solved. So those were the 4 key reasons for, I stepped out in a new journey. Yeah.
And what did you see as the gap then in terms of what was out there from a consulting perspective that you needed to do differently to other consulting businesses?
So what is missing today is technology consulting. You've got large consulting players who could and who can do process consulting, right, and a business consulting. And then there are large players who can implement. But if you look at the way they do is they'll come to you and say, what do you want? Right? And you have to tell them this is what I want. Nobody will come to you and say, where do you want to go in next 5 years? Right? What are your aspirations and what are your problems today? And then come back and say, look, we can do it. We can help you reach from point A to point B and point B to point C next 5 years if you follow this technology roadmap. You may get a good advice around what you should be doing next 5 years, but what's important is how do you execute that plan, right? For the execution, today there's a gap, and this is one of the gap ads in the market where unless someone does justice to you and to the customer from a technology consulting perspective and can help convert their vision into a plan that can be executed over a period of years, it's not going to work. We are trying to fix that problem by bringing in element of right consulting and that right layer of execution, and that is what our core one of our core principle is.
And you're doing Salesforce, but then you also have an RPA offering. We're seeing now in Australia more consulting companies that are doing RPA as well as Salesforce. How do they come together, and where do they kind of marry?
So a lot of use cases. So and that's other point I said, right? How do you bring in element of digital transformation with Salesforce and others tech around Salesforce, right, to help the customer? So what we do is not just Salesforce, we do RPA. There are apps on different clouds. So I would say IaaS platforms. We do a lot of work around AWS and analytics and other stuff. But from an RPA perspective, there are a lot of areas where it can help. Simple problem statement being, how do you, it can really help bring in a lot of element of transformation, automation, and it can help you improve productivity at call centers. Or for your internal HR or employee desk. For example, there are use cases where on a monthly basis, the finance team may need some sort of financial reports, coming out from Oracle or other apps. And what happens today is someone will download those reports. The team will raise a ticket in either on Salesforce or on ServiceNow, and then someone will download the report, attach, and send it. Right? You can automate these things very quickly using RPA. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not that you can't automate using other ways, but the approach is very quick. Not just that, you can automate the way requests are received from customers. Like if you are receiving requests from omni-channel and you want to kind of understand the intent and quickly act and close the ticket without a human intervention, to a certain extent also we can do it using RPA. So I would say there are three, at least we operate at a couple of levels. One is we help improve the adoption and the quality of implementation using RPA more at a functional and a process automation level. Second mode of RPA deployment that we do is more at a tech level, where bots that could help you improve integrations. This may not just be around Salesforce, but around the entire infrastructure. Bots that can help you give you an alert or a warnings around the server uptime or chances of things going haywire. So we do help in both the segments. From a Salesforce perspective, we primarily help more from a process and a functionality automation. The example I gave you was around call center. We have done a couple of RPAs around CPQs. We've done a lot of RPA around, we've got our own products around employability and tutoring, etc. We've done some sort of an RPA around that as well.
It'll be interesting. I think RPA is an area that Salesforce will look to bring more into the platform. I guess with all of the consulting companies now looking at RPA, is there like an RPA solution within Salesforce at the moment?
MuleSoft, yeah. So there is no dedicated. There are ways to build certain automations. We primarily work with on a different platform that gels and connects well with Salesforce, more from an RPA perspective.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this space in terms of like acquisitions and things.
It is, yeah, it is. An RPA would. It's always been there. I would say it's not that it's something new. The fun is in how do you use group multiple tech together to solve a problem. So RPA along with contact or service cloud engagements, RPA along with maybe complex field service implementations, right? Can bring in a layer of better productivity outcome and adoption.
Nice. And you mentioned another reason for your setting up and running of the business was because you want to enable more people. Now we know there's a shortage of talent in the ecosystem. We're really feeling that pinch at the moment in Australia. What are you doing as a business to bring people through and not just rely on experienced talent but new talent coming into the market?
Yeah. So we're running a couple of programs within the organization to enable a fresh pool of talent. And then the two key reasons, one, as you rightly said, right, that there is shortage of talent in the market and that needs to be addressed. The second reason is we're looking at them as someone who can come and bring in fresh school of thoughts around doing certain things in a different way. So what we've done is as part of the program, we hire graduate, engineering graduates or tech graduates. We train them. There's a dedicated training that we do for them on different clouds, and then we kind of slowly engage them on projects where they can shadow and learn. So it's a good 1-year program before they are something who can be deployed on their own onto projects. But more than that, what we're also doing is we are trying to cross-train different technically skilled resources into Salesforce. So we are working on cross-training team with good front-end knowledge. Someone who's worked on React or any good front-end framework, or someone who's worked on good or someone who comes with Java background, a Python background, trying to train them. We're also trying to onboard and hire, team from, or I would say, skilled resources from Siebel background or any other similar tech, similar to Siebel. We're trying to get people who comes with a lot of industry knowledge, right, and who can contribute more in ideation and bring in some school of thoughts around how does it happen on a verticalized solution as compared to something which is much more platform and horizontal in nature. And there are different programs. So there are programs which is for 1 year. There are programs that runs for 3 months. There are programs that runs for 6 months to enable the hired resources with the right skills. And what we also do is we give them the right career path, where the career path guides them around the type of certification that they can do. And one thing we don't compromise on with is we don't put them onto any live project until they're ready. And when our definition of being ready is you need to be ready from a consulting mindset perspective, where you can recommend and advise the customers, not where you can only code something which has been given to you.
Sure, that must be. I mean, that's the challenge, right? It's getting them to that level, and I think there are companies out there that are having to rush that now just because of the lack of resources, and then the value that's being added, I guess, is jeopardized. So yeah, I think that getting that balance right is because these people want to be on projects as well. I'm guessing, right? So you've got to they're keen to do it, but you've got to hold them back until they're in a position to add value.
Yeah. So as a company, our focus is consulting transformation, but we also have products. So what we do is we've introduced a couple of smart things like pair programming, where they can work on products with some senior, right? Senior can guide them and observe what they're doing, but we consume them first on our internal products. So there are products that is primarily meant to be sold for the customer. There are certain products which is used for our internal process automations and tools and delivery management. So we try to consume them for things like that. There are projects that's given to them, then they come back, present under someone's supervision, but they go ahead, and this is one of the expectation when they engage with us, right? That you would not be put onto live engagements until we feel you're ready, but we will support you to make sure that you are ready, and we will give you good amount of ample time training, but you need to spend time to reach to the level that is expected.
Yeah, nice. So a lot has changed since you came into the ecosystem. How do you see the next few years playing out from a Salesforce ecosystem perspective, and where the platform can go from here?
So looking at the trend and looking at the kind of acquisition I've seen from the organization, so Salesforce would definitely continue to grow at the same pace for next, I would say, couple of years. But what's really important from the players in the market is the tech that is there being used today will not be the same tomorrow within Salesforce ecosystem as well. So we need to be first ready and accept the fact that there will be transformation and change from a tech and offering perspective. Need for upskilling would always be there. And as long as you are able to upskill yourself, there's a good growth in market. If you can't, then there will be challenges. Anything you work on today, for example, the clouds around Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, slowly those clouds will become outdated and will be more like a commodity. And there are new clouds, financial services, manufacturing, industry clouds, which has already has come in, and the adoption will increase. 2 years, 3 years down the line, there could be something more that might come. So we need to be ready for the change. Product and the organization is going to stay for next 20 years. And the question is, if you the players in the market, primarily the ecosystem, if we all want to stay and grow at the same pace, then we need to be ready to adopt and grow. And one thing that we are focusing on primarily is we're looking at ways to make, in most of the engagements that we are part of it, where we are involved either via our offering, our product, or around implementation that we do, is how do I make Salesforce as heart of the implementation and the engagement. And I see that the investment even from the organization is in the right direction, which would enable us to do that. The fact that we are able to do it for a couple of organizations means that the product growth is there, and when the product growth and stability is guaranteed, for SI partners, for IC partners, it means that the growth is there even for them in coming few years.
Yeah, nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your experience. And I'm really excited to see how things continue to evolve for the business, and would love to see you in Australia at some point.
Definitely, we're planning to be there very soon, and I'll love to meet you there.
Yeah, nice. And for anyone that's watching and wants to reach out and pick your brains or ask any questions, where's the best place to find you?
I'm always available on LinkedIn. They can message me on LinkedIn, and then we can pick up the thread from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, Ben. Thank you.